Anya adjusted her worn goggles, the lenses filtering the harsh glare of the binary sun baking down on the rust-colored plains. Dust devils danced across the parched landscape, each one a miniature mirage against the backdrop of crimson sky. "You sure about this, Captain?" Kai's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with apprehension. "This whole sector's off the grid. Ain't no telling what lurks out here." Anya grunted, squinting at the horizon where jagged peaks pierced the smoky haze. "The cipher leads us here, Kai. It has to." She traced her gloved finger along a faded line etched on her worn datapad. "This abandoned research outpost." The glyphs flickered and shifted on the screen. "It's supposed to hold answers about the crimson storms." Kai whistled. "Those storms, they freak out even the seasoned pilots." "That's why we need what's inside that place," Anya said, her gaze fixed forward. Those crimson storms weren't just weather phenomena. They were anomalies, tearing holes in space-time, spitting out twisted tech, and leaving behind whispers of impossible things. The Cipher, a fragmented code she had unearthed on an ancient datapad, pointed to this sector, claiming the answers lay dormant within the outpost's ruined halls. "Fine," Kai said reluctantly, his voice crackling with static as they navigated through the tempestuous winds. "But if anything goes south." A blinding flash of crimson light engulfed their ship, throwing Anya against the console. The comms hissed and went silent. Kai's panicked shout was cut short by a deafening crack, like the air itself tearing apart. When the light faded, Anya found herself staring out at a swirling vortex of molten clouds. The crimson storms had manifested around them, a malevolent ballet of destruction. The outpost was lost in a sea of red, its metal skeleton groaning under the assault. "Kai!" Anya yelled, her voice swallowed by the howling wind. She scrambled for the comms again, but only static greeted her cries. Their last connection to the outside world severed. Fear clawed at the back of her throat, but she pushed it down. Panic would lead to mistakes. They were in this together, Kai, her crew, and the Cipher's cryptic promise. She didn't have time for uncertainty now. "The Cipher," Anya murmured, pulling up the datapad once more, letting the flickering glyphs guide her through the tempest. This storm was different, violent, with an intelligence of its own. The answers she sought were tangled up in this chaos, and she had to find a way through. One thing was certain, whatever lay within that crumbling outpost, it held the key to deciphering the storms, and perhaps the fate of everything they knew. Red filtered through every crack on Anya's visor, casting wavering shadows across the warped metal floors of the outpost's main hall. She activated her headlamp, a feeble light against the encroaching crimson hues, illuminating rusted machinery and shattered data screens, remnants of frantic research abandoned mid-project. "This place feels wrong," Kai's voice crackled through her comm finally, shaky but static-free. "He must have gotten to some semblance of signal back at the ship. Like I'm walking through a bad dream, you know?" Anya nodded despite his not seeing her. "It doesn't feel just abandoned," she replied, her voice echoing strangely in the vast cavernous space. "Like something, or someone, is watching us." Her gaze drifted towards flickering screens, cryptic symbols flashing across them with a spectral glow, glyphs similar to those on her Cipher datapad, pulsating with an unsettling energy. She edged closer cautiously, stepping over mangled wires and debris littering the floor. A chill snaked down her spine as she reached out to touch one of the screens. The surface rippled like disturbed water, then projected a holographic image, a twisted figure, cloaked in crimson energy, its eyes glittering with malevolent intelligence. Anya stumbled back, heart pounding against her ribs like a hummingbird's wings. "Did you see that?" She hissed into the comm. "See what? You gotta be more specific, Captain." Kai's voice was laced with concern now. "This place is starting to get under my skin, too." The air shimmered again, and another figure materialized, this one humanoid, clad in tattered military fatigues, its face obscured by a mask of cracked metal. It spoke in a distorted voice, words garbled and strange. "Cipher. Must be deciphered. Crimson Storm. Unleashed." Then the hologram flickered and vanished. "Anya," Kai's voice was urgent now. "What happened? What did you see?" "Something showed itself," Anya muttered, still catching her breath. Fear tightened its grip upon her, but she pushed it back, forcing her focus on logic. "It spoke about the Cipher, about a crimson storm being unleashed. Anya's pulse quickened. This wasn't an abandoned outpost. It was a nexus of power, a warning wrapped in shadows. The Crimson Storms weren't just anomalies. They were controlled, manipulated by something. Someone. And the cipher held the key to understanding it all. The realization struck her like a physical blow. They weren't just seeking answers here. They had stumbled into a dangerous game already underway. Kai, Anya said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. We need to find a way to decipher this cipher. There's nothing normal about this storm, and it feels like whatever caused it is watching our every move. They had come seeking answers. Now they were staring into the abyss. The silence was oppressive. Anya activated her helmet comm again, hoping Kai's voice would crackle back. Static. Nothing but the rasp of her own breath echoing inside the cramped chamber. Anything? Jax asked, his boots crunching on debris as he approached the wall panel Maya wrestled with. She swore under her breath as a circuit sparked and died. That access terminal's toast. Maybe we got lucky, Anya said, trying to inject optimism into her voice despite the knot tightening in her stomach. Maybe this place was deserted after all. Maybe whatever caused those storms had just left the area years ago. If there's anything useful here, it'll be on these old comms banks, not anything fancy. She pointed towards a cluster of blinking consoles flanking the wall panel. Jax grunted and started fiddling with the nearest console, his broad shoulders hunching over the cluttered interface. The glyphs lighting up across the screen mirrored those Anya had seen earlier, pulsing with an eerie crimson rhythm. Nothing here, he muttered, wiping grime off his brow. Mostly just static. Maya straightened, a furrow in her forehead. There has to be something. This place was obviously vital. Why else would they build it in a storm-ridden sector? Her gaze drifted towards the jagged scar the crimson lightning had left on the outpost's hull. And whatever this cipher is, it's powerful. A sudden clatter from behind jolted them both, their guns already trained instinctively towards the source of the noise. A small robotic drone lay deactivated on the floor, its segmented limbs tangled in wires like a metal spider caught in a web. It wasn't anything like the sleek models Anya was accustomed to. This felt primitive, outdated. Looks like someone was cleaning up before they left, she said, approaching cautiously. The comms panel beside it sparked back to life, bathing the room in an even deeper crimson as holographic projections flickered across its surface. The distorted face of a soldier, their voice a garbled whisper. They knew, they tried. The image stuttered and died, replaced by static that crackled like lightning in her ears. Maya frowned, her gut twisting with unease. Do you think they were trying to warn us? She whispered, her eyes tracing the glyphs again, as if searching for answers within their luminous depths. A wave of cold air swept through the chamber, extinguishing the headlamp and plunging them into darkness. Then, just when Anya thought fear would engulf her, a voice echoed within the oppressive silence. Clever, it hissed, the sound emanating from all around them. Intriguing. Jax let out a yelp, spinning in a frantic circle as his hand flew towards his weapon. The red light from the projection panel pulsed erratically, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls, warping familiar shapes into monstrous figures. And then a voice spoke again. Welcome, it said, to your new reality. The air hung thick and silent, a weight pressing down on Anya's chest, more oppressive than the low hum of the damaged life support system. They had barricaded themselves within what used to be an observation deck, or at least she assumed it was based on the remaining cracked viewports overlooking the vast emptiness of space, now clouded by swirling crimson haze. Static from the comms again, Jax reported, his voice strained. A faint tremor ran through his usually calm demeanor. He fiddled with the console, spitting curses under his breath every few seconds after another frustrated thump against the console's outdated buttons. There's something interfering with it. Maya pressed her face against the cool glass, peering into the storm-ravaged nebula beyond. The crimson lightning danced like a chaotic ballet, casting fleeting shadows across the dilapidated interior. The storms have intensified since we landed, she muttered more to herself than anyone else. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Like... Her voice trailed off as if searching for the right words. Jax, usually quick with a retort, simply tilted his head in understanding. Even he seemed unsettled. It wasn't just the storms or the silence from Kai. There was something else about this place, a prickling awareness of being watched. Anna pulled out her energy pistol, a comforting weight against the cold emptiness of the deck. "What do we know about this cipher?" she asked quietly, more to break the unsettling quiet than anything else. Maya sighed and turned from the viewports. "Not much besides whispers, legends among smugglers and fringe researchers. They say it's a kind of intelligence, a network woven throughout space itself, a consciousness made of energy." Her fingers traced the faint scratches on the comms panel. "They say it can manipulate matter, bend light, even minds." Jax let out a humorless laugh. "Sounds like something straight out of one of those old holodramas." His gaze lingered on Maya's face, catching the flicker of doubt in her eyes, the tightening of her jaw. He changed tactics, opting for lighter ground. "We're realists, right? We deal in facts, not fairy tales." But even his attempts at levity felt strained. A cold draft snaked through the deck, causing a shudder to run down Anya's spine. The temperature had already been dropping since they arrived. It was colder than it should be for a space station this close to the sun. "Someone's out there," Anna whispered, her words barely audible over the hiss of the malfunctioning life support system. She pointed towards one of the darkened corridors leading deeper into the bowels of the station. A flicker of movement, too quick to be confirmed, lingered near the corner before vanishing completely. Anya felt a knot of apprehension twist in her gut. "We need to find Kai." The air hung thick with dust motes dancing in the feeble light filtering through grimy viewports. Anya ran a gloved hand over an overturned chair, its once vibrant padding now threadbare and stained. A shiver ran down her spine, more from the chill settling deeper within the station's rusted bones than the storm raging outside. "Maybe Kai just lost comms temporarily," Maya offered, forcing optimism into her usually steady voice. Her face was drawn, worry etching deep lines around her eyes. "That storm fried more than just our landing gear, didn't it?" Jax grunted, crouched over their remaining console. Wires snaked out like tangled veins, flashing erratically in the dim light. "I'm still getting some weak signals, but nothing decipherable, and this energy signature, it doesn't read like any system I've seen before." Anya approached them, her steps echoing unnervingly in the vast cavernous room that was once a communal area. A gnawing unease settled deep in her gut. This place felt wrong, off-kilter. The silence was more than just the absence of sound. It had weight, pressing in on their eardrums like an unseen entity. "What about access codes?" she asked, hoping for some familiar grounding. "Maybe there's something recorded or a log." Jax shook his head, his frustration evident. "The mainframe's offline. This whole place is practically running blind." He gestured to the flickering display before him. Whatever caused this storm, it also knocked out their internal security protocols. Maya shivered again, pulling her jacket closer. "I don't like the sound of that." Anya knew she echoed Maya's sentiments. They had faced down pirates and asteroids, navigated treacherous wormholes, and fought off hostile aliens. But this felt different. This place felt watched. As if to punctuate her thought, a low hum resonated through the room, growing stronger by the second. Lights flickered rapidly, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls. The hairs on Anna's neck prickled with goosebumps. Jack scrambled behind his console, eyes wide with alarm. "What the hell is that?" Anya drew her energy pistol, its familiar weight a comfort in the growing chaos. "Find somewhere secure," she ordered, her voice firm despite the tremor running through her. "And stay quiet. Whatever's causing this, we don't know how it responds." The hum reached a crescendo, then abruptly ceased. Silence. A silence heavier and more profound than before. Suddenly, a soft click echoed in the stillness. One that sounded almost synthetic. Then another. This time, they weren't alone. "Hello?" Anya called out into the darkness, her voice a shaky whisper. "Is anyone there?" But the only answer was the low hum of an unseen presence stirring deeper within the heart of the derelict station. Anya pressed her gloved palm against a cold metal wall, trying to anchor herself in the unsettling stillness. They'd retreated deeper into the station, seeking shelter from both the storm raging outside and whatever unseen presence lingered within. "Jack said there's a hydroponics bay on this level," Maya murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Her face was pale beneath her helmet's visor. eyes darting nervously around the dimly lit corridor. Maybe we could find something edible, or at least some indication of who was here. Anya swallowed, trying to steady her nerves. Food's the least of our worries right now. We need to figure out what happened to Kai and how to reach him. The thought of their missing colleague clawed at her, fueling a desperate hope that he was simply unreachable, not lost. As they neared a set of sealed double doors, a faint hum pulsed from the other side, accompanied by a rhythmic clicking sound. It resonated deeper than the station's general creaking and whirs, sending a shiver down Anya's spine. Jax pushed his comm headset closer to his cheek, frustration evident in his voice. No response from Kai. I'm picking up strange energy readings around these doors. It's fluctuating, almost like... He stopped abruptly, gripping the side of his helmet. Like a heartbeat. Maya's breath hitched. A heartbeat? Jack swallowed, nodding grimly. Sounds illogical, but that's what it's like, and now there's movement on the readings. With newfound urgency, they both turned to Anya. Her gaze flickered between them, her eyes reflecting their shared fear and determination. Anya drew a deep breath, her grip tightening on her energy pistol. On 3, she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her chest. 1, 2. She pressed a palm against the door control panel, her knuckles white with tension. 3. The doors groaned as they slid open, revealing a cavernous chamber bathed in an eerie, pulsating blue light. The hum intensified, vibrating through the floor and into their bones. In the center of the room, a massive sphere pulsed with the same rhythmic energy signature they'd sensed from the hallway, a heartbeat echoing through the desolate station. The air within the chamber felt thick, charged with a palpable energy that prickled Anya's skin. It pulsed in sync with the blue light emanating from the massive sphere at the center of the room, a giant heart beating within the derelict station. Scanning the sphere now, Jax announced, his voice tense as he worked. Got something. It's a data core, but unlike anything I've ever seen. Massive energy reserves and intricate coding patterns. He paused, glancing at Anya and Maya. This thing, it doesn't feel like technology, more like some kind of biological network. Maya stepped closer to the sphere's translucent surface, her gaze transfixed by the mesmerizing blue light. It's beautiful, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the humming pulse. But incredibly invasive, like it's trying to reach out. Anya shivered despite herself. A knot of dread tightened in her stomach. Reach out? To whom? Jax whirled around, his face pale beneath his helmet visor. Didn't you hear? He breathed, eyes wide with panic. That heartbeat, it got stronger, didn't it? And there's movement. I'm getting multiple life signatures, but they're not human. Terror seized Anya's chest. They're connected to the core, Maya murmured, her voice trembling. Whatever was on this station, it hasn't left. A sudden jolt ran through the chamber, throwing them off balance. The blue light intensified, bathing the room in an unsettling glow. Then, tendrils of energy erupted from the sphere, lashing out towards them with startling speed. Take cover! Anya screamed as they instinctively dove for whatever shelter they could find. A workbench, a stack of metal crates. The tendrils whipped through the air, passing mere inches from their outstretched fingers before sizzling against the floor and vanishing into harmless wisps of smoke. A deafening silence descended upon them, broken only by the throbbing hum of the data core. When Anya dared to peek up, she gasped. A wave of figures had materialized within the pulsing blue light, humanoid shapes, but twisted and contorted, their limbs long and spidery, eyes flashing with an unnatural violet fire. They stood silently, observing them with chilling intensity. What are those things? Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her own heart. Jax scrambled to his feet, reaching for his sidearm. Unidentified life forms, he said grimly, his voice tight with suppressed fear. Highly hostile. He looked at Anya, then to Maya. We need to get out of here. But as they made a move towards the door, one of the figures stepped forward, its elongated limbs gliding silently across the floor. It raised a hand, or what appeared to be a hand, and a wave of pulsating energy emanated from its palm, filling the room with a disorienting hum. Anya staggered, her senses overloaded. The ground beneath them seemed to shift and buckle. Reality itself was warping around them. Jax, she screamed over the rising cacophony in her head. What's happening? But Jax didn't respond. His eyes were glazed over, his body twitching uncontrollably as a wave of violet energy engulfed him, leaving behind only an empty shell. The hiss of failing life support systems scraped across Liam's nerves like sandpaper. "We need to get comms working," he mumbled, fiddling with the tangled wires of the emergency transmitter. Rain hammered against the warped viewport, blurring the already desolate landscape of the space station exterior. Maya crouched beside him, her face illuminated by the flickering glow from a salvaged energy cell. "Anything?" Liam shook his head, frustration tightening his jaw. "Nothing. Power fluctuations are too erratic. We're caught in an endless loop, enough to charge our instruments briefly, but never enough for stable comms." He sighed, the weight of their isolation pressing down on him. "And with Jax, we have no idea if he..." He trailed off, unable to voice the fear that gnawed at the edges of his hope. Finding Jax had become an obsession, a beacon in this growing pit of darkness. They'd combed through half the station, following faint distress signals and echoes of Jax's last transmission, a garbled message about a crimson light and something strange. "There's got to be something we can use," Maya said, her voice laced with determination. She pointed towards a rusted metal panel near their makeshift repair station. "That door might lead to the communications hub. See if you can jimmy it open. Maybe we have better luck in there." Liam nodded, his resolve flaring at her suggestion. He retrieved a multi-tool from his harness and wrestled with the jammed latch. Resistance met his efforts at every turn, each groan of metal echoing their growing desperation. "Help me," Liam grunted, sweat stinging his eyes. Maya rushed forward, lending her strength to pry open the rusted door. A musty blast of stale air hit them as they pushed past the threshold, revealing a dimly lit room bathed in the orange glow of emergency lamps. Twisted wires snaked across the floor like metallic vines, connected to an array of blinking consoles and deactivated screens. A sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air, amplified by the unsettling hum emanating from the dormant equipment. "It's alive," Maya whispered, her voice taut with apprehension. The words were met by a sudden surge of energy that pulsed through the room, causing the lights to flicker wildly and the consoles to spasm with a digital frenzy. A holographic screen flickered into life, displaying a distorted image of a crimson sky streaked with swirling purple nebulae. Above it danced faint glyphs, shimmering like heat waves in the oppressive darkness, each one pulsating with an unnatural luminescence. Liam moved towards the console, his heart pounding against his ribs. He felt a strange pull towards the screen, as if a hidden voice was beckoning him closer. What is this?" he murmured, reaching out to touch the glyphs. He froze, his hand inches from the screen. A cold wave of reality washed over him, laced with the prickling sensation of unseen eyes watching their every move. A low, guttural whisper echoed through the room, its origin lost in the maze of flickering lights and distorted images. "Welcome to the Cipher." The glyphs on the holographic screen pulsed like a living heartbeat, their crimson glow reflecting in Liam's wide eyes. What does it mean?" Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the station's failing systems. She edged closer to Liam, but didn't touch him. "Is that the source?" Liam swallowed hard, unable to tear his gaze from the shifting symbols. They seemed to writhe and twist, morphing into fleeting shapes he couldn't decipher. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice raspy. "It feels aware." A shiver crawled down his spine. The air in the communications hub felt different, charged with a strange energy that prickled at his skin. It was more than just the malfunctioning equipment. There was something sinister humming beneath the surface, a presence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He reached out to touch the screen again, mesmerized by its hypnotic glow. A jolt shot through him, jarring his senses back to reality. He stumbled backward, his hand throbbing. Maya rushed to his side, her gaze darting between him and the holographic display. "Liam, are you all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine," he muttered, forcing a smile. The tremor in his hand betrayed his words. This wasn't some standard malfunction. Something was deeply wrong, something far beyond their comprehension. He glanced at Maya, her face pale but determined. "We need to find Jax," he said, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at him. "If the glyphs, if they're connected to whatever happened to him." Maya nodded, her eyes hardening with resolve. "Then we have to solve this." She retrieved a datapad from her belt and tapped it open. The station's logs might give us some clues about Jax's last transmission. They scoured the fragmented records, piecing together his final movements before he vanished. The data was patchy, corrupted by time and neglect, but one detail stood out. Jax had mentioned a specific section of the station, Sector 7, claiming it held something crucial to their mission. Sector 7, Maya repeated, frowning at the faded schematics on her datapad. It's labeled as an observation deck, supposedly with panoramic views of the star system. Liam's gut twisted uneasily. Hope isn't something we can afford to waste here, he said, a chill snaking down his spine. But Jax didn't speak about anything else, except that crimson light. As they turned towards the exit, a faint hum echoed through the station, and the holographic projection flickered erratically, casting dancing shadows across their faces. The glyphs pulsed once more with an ominous red glow before fading to darkness, leaving behind a lingering chill in the air. They stepped out of the comms hub, facing the unknown depths of Sector 7. A journey that felt less like a search and more like a descent into oblivion. The airlock hissed as they stepped into Sector 7, its metal groaning with age. Dusty sunlight filtered through shattered panoramic windows, illuminating a cavernous space that seemed to hum with a strange energy. The observation deck was littered with debris, broken chairs, cracked panels, and faded holographic projections swirling like ghosts of forgotten memories. It's strangely quiet, Maya murmured, her hand hovering near the laser pistol at her hip. She scanned the room, her eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through grimy windows. Liam swallowed, his throat tight. Too quiet. He moved cautiously towards a console, its screen flickering intermittently. The glyphs from earlier pulsed on a secondary screen, their crimson glow casting long shadows across Maya's face. Anything? Just static, Maya replied, her voice strained. But there's an energy surge emanating from that console, weak, but definitely different. Liam frowned. It feels connected to the glyphs, he muttered, his gaze flitting between the pulsing symbols and the silent consoles surrounding them. A prickle of unease crawled up his spine. They were standing on edge, a tightrope walk between curiosity and fear in this eerie silence. What if it's a trap? Maya leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. Maybe Jax stumbled onto something dangerous, and her words trailed off, the unspoken fear hanging heavy in the air. Liam reached out to touch the console again. The jolt he felt earlier was gone, but a faint vibration hummed beneath his fingers, sending a shiver down his spine. It pulsated with an unnatural rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, mimicking the glyphs on the screen. He pulled away suddenly, a cold dread settling in his stomach. Don't touch it, Maya said urgently, her grip tightening on her laser pistol. Whatever's inside that console, it doesn't want us to know what it is. The humming intensified, and the glyphs on the screen shifted, swirling faster than before. A crackle of energy erupted from the console, followed by a brief, blinding flash of red light. The flickering holomap cast long shadows across Liam's face as he traced a path through Sector 7 with his gloved finger. Static hissed from the outdated console, the only sound besides Maya's rasping breaths. There has to be an emergency beacon somewhere in this place, she murmured, her voice strained against the silence. If we can hail someone, anyone. Her words trailed off, swallowed by the vast emptiness of Sector 7. Liam sighed, his shoulders slumping. We've combed through every log entry so far, nothing but dead ends and cryptic notes about internal systems failures. Did Jax mention anything before he disappeared? Maya pressed, her gaze fixed on him. He could see the exhaustion etched around her eyes, mirroring the emptiness of their situation. Liam shook his head, rubbing a hand over his stubble. Not really, just that he was getting strange readings from this sector, something about a power fluctuation. He trailed off again, remembering Jax's infectious enthusiasm moments before those same crimson glyphs had engulfed their vision, throwing everyone into chaos. A cold realization settled in his stomach. They were drifting further away with each passing moment. A sharp clang echoed through the chamber, jolting them both from their thoughts. Maya instinctively grabbed her pistol, spinning towards the sound as Liam whipped around to the broken windows overlooking the station's outer ring. The battered frame of a landing craft hung precariously, its thrusters offline, and its cockpit shattered like a spiderweb. What happened? How did that get here? Maya whispered, her voice hushed with shock. Liam pushed himself off the console, peering outside. The mangled wreckage seemed to mock them, another casualty in their increasingly dire situation. He shivered, feeling a heavy weight pressing down on him. It was more than just fear. It was an overwhelming sense of déjà vu, a chilling premonition that mirrored Jax's last moments before he disappeared. The hiss of recycled air punctuated the silence as Maya crept through the darkened corridor. Each creak of the station's aged metal hull sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, reminding her they weren't alone. Liam walked beside her, his boots crunching softly on broken glass that glinted ominously under his helmet lamp's dim glow. "Anything?" Liam murmured, his voice distorted by his comms unit. Maya shook her head, squinting through the holographic visor she wore to filter out radiation. "Nothing but shadows and echoes." She tapped a series of buttons on her wrist console, activating thermal imaging. The screen flickered to life, painting the scene in shades of red and blue, empty rooms, cold metal surfaces, and something else. A faint, warm pulse off-screen. "There," she whispered, gesturing towards a door tucked away in the shadows. The warmth pulsed again slightly, beckoning them closer. Was it another malfunction, or perhaps something more sinister? The thought chilled her to the bone. Inside, a small maintenance bay cluttered with rusted tools and tangled wires filled their vision. The faint warmth emanating from earlier flickered stronger, centered on a dusty workbench where a single object remained untouched amidst the chaos, an old-fashioned analog clock, its hands frozen at 3:13. "That's odd," Liam said, his voice hesitant as he approached cautiously. He reached out to touch the clock face, but Maya grabbed his arm just in time. "Don't," she breathed. "What if it's a trap?" Liam flinched back, his hand retracting slowly. The hairs on his neck prickled with disquiet. Perhaps their unease was justified. Just as he spoke, a whirring noise echoed through the chamber. The dust around them swirled into a disorienting vortex, blurring everything in its path, except for the clock ticking steadily at 3:13. A chillingly familiar crimson glow erupted from behind the clock face, bathing the room in an unsettling crimson light. This time, Maya drew her pistol instinctively, pointing it towards the growing shimmer of energy emanating from the now pulsating clock. "Liam," she said urgently, her voice tight with fear. "Something's happening."